This is Muggsy. Once a rescue dog, he's now thriving as our legal beagle. At Pillersdorf Law Office, our motto is fight for the underdog. If you're charged with a crime or get hurt in an accident, hire us and let the other side know they're barking up the wrong tree. The sooner we get involved, the better the outcome. Listen to Muggsy and call for a free strategy session to discuss your case.
He's been a congressman for more than 40 years now, and now he's dealing with the worst flash flooding event in our history. During his time in office, Congressman Hal Rogers has worked to prevent high water issues with several flood control projects, especially along the Cumberland River. Now he says we need to study and figure out what can be done in other areas. The congressman is my guest tonight on Issues and Answers, the Mountain Edition.
With a new Toyota, you can practically make summer stand still. From making a splash in a Highlander to fitting in more fun in a Camry or tackling a trailhead in a RAV4 hybrid. Who's a good boy? Enjoy the last of summer in an exciting new Toyota during Toyota's national sales event.
Save big on the best-selling SUV Toyota RAV4, like this electrified RAV4 hybrid with fuel savings over $3,700. Save even more with 1.9 APR financing.
Come in today.
Toyota, let's go places.
Congressman Hal Rogers is my guest tonight on Issues and Answers. Congressman, good to see you back in Hazard.
Good to be here.
I guess my first question is, you've seen the damage from this recent flood. Do you think it's the worst we've ever seen in eastern Kentucky?
I don't think there's any doubt about that. The water level, the territory covered is so huge, large. Half my district. 16 of my 33 counties suffered heavy damage.
Yeah. And you saw it from the air, too. Just tell me about viewing it from the air and what it...
Well, I wanted to thank the National Guard for what they've done and are doing. So I went with them on a routine day on the helicopter to survey the damage, to deliver some water and other materials to the remote areas. And there are still remote areas where people are not able to get out because of a bridge or culvert or what have you. But the National Guard did a fantastic job. I can't be more proud of them and thankful. They saved 600 lives.
Yeah.
Some 66, I think, of them, they were hoisted from the rooftop into the helicopter in very remote areas. So it was a danger for the Guard. But boy, they're super.
And probably prevented the death toll from going a lot higher.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is this the fastest you've ever seen a federal disaster declaration declared?
It is. When the storm hit that 3:30 a.m. By a fairly early morning,
yeah,
we knew about the flood. So I rallied our delegation in Congress and wrote a letter to the president asking him to approve the governor's request for emergency, and he did it that day. I don't know of another time where a disaster, particularly of this magnitude, was attended to on the first day.
Yeah. And obviously you and the president are in different parties, but you did brag on the president for getting that done when he was in eastern Kentucky.
Well, you know, he and I don't agree on many issues, but we do agree on this, that this is one country, that we are all obligated to serve the people, regardless of politics. And so, yes, I think I appreciated him coming here and also signing the declaration.
Yeah. Of course, you were with him when he visited the region and the governor. Do you believe their concern for the region is genuine and they will follow up as the months go on?
Well, that remains to be seen. take them at their word that they're going to be here interminably. In fact, I talked yesterday at some length with the head of FEMA in D.C. She was here on the trip, and told her that we were frustrated that we're not getting enough trailers for people to live in. They're still sleeping, many of them in tents, in cars, and what have you. And I also told her that the people who are filling out the applications for aid and the like need to have a different attitude. Instead of trying to find a way to say no, they should be finding a way to say yes to people's desperate needs. I mean, these are people who don't even have a driver's license. Yeah. Everything's been taken away. And these interviewers maybe are used to being in metropolitan areas where you have a lot of papers that you can give to back up your claim. That's not so here.
Do you feel that FEMA is listening to your concerns now? Have you seen proof of that yet? I think they're better, somewhat better. Still got a ways to go. Yeah. One of the biggest concerns I'm hearing moving forward is housing. Because as you said, people are still living in cars and tents. What is being done to address that? Because obviously we want to get these people in more stable situations before wintertime.
Well, the state is bringing several trailers from West Kentucky from the tornado disaster. So those are being brought here by the dozens. I told her yesterday that we desperately need housing from wherever, and she promised to pursue that even more aggressively.
Okay. I know another concern you've had is losing post offices. Quite a few post offices had damage. What's being done to address that? And I know there's a concern that some of these may not reopen, which it's not what you want, obviously.
Yeah, right. Well, by our account, we've got 30 post offices out of commission. And we're trying to get their mail delivered to an alternate spot that's still open. So that's a work in progress, and we don't know how long that's going to take. The most important piece of that is trying to find out how to communicate with those people that you want to tell them that they should go to another locale. But that's being worked on.
You've obviously been associated with several flood control projects in the last 40 plus years that you've been in office, particularly along the Cumberland River, successful flood control projects. But this was mainly a flash flood event. Is there anything that can be done to prevent this or make it so it's not as bad?
In fact, I talked to the head of the Corps of Engineers in Louisville, which has jurisdiction over the Kentucky River, which was the main culprit in this flood, to see if there's a way that we can make changes that would prevent this happening again. So they're very interested. It's a beginning of conversations on this. I hope it leads to what we did on the Cumberland River during the 80s and 90s, where I took on the project of taming the Cumberland River, which perennially flooded towns like Pineville and Middlesboro and Williamsburg, Barberville, so forth, Harlan, and Cumberland. And so we did levees in some places, or tunnels, or cut-throughs, or what have you. $800 million worth over the span of time. But no longer does Pineville or Middlesboro or those towns, they no longer flood because of those projects. even though it floods in the countryside.
Yeah.
Whether we can do that type of a chain on the Cumberland, on the Kentucky, we're going to try to find out. But these valleys on the Kentucky are different from those on the Cumberland. These valleys are more sharp and defined and deep, with very little room at the bottom, except for the creek or maybe a road. So that's a different set of problems that the Corps is going to face. But I'm going to push them to tell us, can we fix this or not?
Yeah. But obviously that's going to take some time. So it's nothing's an easy overnight fix.
Right.
We reported recently on a lawsuit by several flood victims claiming negligence by coal companies that made this flooding worse. Do you think that's the case here?
I'm going to let the court make their decision. I don't know. That's something that's beyond my expertise.
Yeah. We've had, this was called a 1 in 1,000 year flood, and hopefully it was. But across the country recently, I think I saw yesterday, there's been 5 1 in 1,000 year floods just recently all across the country. It seems we are having natural disasters more often. Do you think that is the result of climate change, and do you fear that we're going to see more extreme weather events?
Well, that's the $64 million question. I don't know the answer, except it's true we are having very terrifically bad weather experiences. What causes that is under investigation. We'll see what the scientists say about it. And I'm going to hold my judgment until we know from experts one way or the other.
Do you believe Congress should do more to address climate change?
Well, we do things all the while. There are hundreds of bills that go through the Congress with little notoriety. And sure, we can always do more, but we've got to bear in mind that these disasters, number one, apparently are inevitable, and number two, are more and more widespread and deeper. So we've got to address the world as it is, not as we would wish it were.
Are you concerned this disaster is going to have certain ripple effects? For example, maybe more people leaving the region that lost their homes. We'd already seen, our population decline. Are you concerned that that might be part of this years down the road?
Well, I certainly hope not. But I don't see many U-Haul trailers on the road. I think people here in our district want to stay here. Kentuckians have a thing about where they are from. You talk to somebody and they'll say, I'm from Harlan County. They don't say the city of Harlan. They don't say Whitesburg. They say Letcher. I'm from Letcher County. Mm-hmm. And we're proud of our home. And so I think they will make the maximum effort to repair the home or whatever in order to stay here and raise their family here. That's a big thing with us. We love our home.
Do you think we need to look more at rebuilding out of the floodplain? I mean, we've had schools damaged that are in the floodplain, and obviously lots of houses. Even though this water reached places I don't think it's ever reached before. But do you think that's something we need to look more seriously at, is rebuilding in different places?
Well, obviously, it makes so much sense to say don't build in the floodplain. But in a good portion of East Kentucky is in the floodplain.
Yeah.
And there's no room above the floodplain level, no open property to build a home in or at. So we may have to do what we're doing on the Big Sandy. I've got them the money to, number one, build a flood wall, but also to elevate homes and businesses on stilts, I would call them, to get them above the flood plain. And that's working. So we are adapting to the needs of the region with different pieces of information and machinery. I know in Harlan's case, we had to dig huge tunnels under an adjoining mountain to divert the river away from the city of Harlan. And no longer does the river go through Harlan City. There are numerous ways to combat the difficulties that we are in, and we'll put our mind and hopefully federal money to the effort.
You know, it seems to me that the response to this disaster, not only from our folks here at home, but really across the country, has just been unprecedented. What's it been like for you to see all the help pouring in here and neighbors come together to help each other?
It's the most frustrating thing. I feel so helpless, and I think I speak for a lot of people that feel helpless to help people in such obvious pain and suffering. But I've been over here working with it, talking to people on the phone, radio, and so forth. But I've been overwhelmed with the generosity of the people, not just of our region, but more importantly, I guess, the state, all across Kentucky, all across the country. I had a congressman from Louisiana call me up and say, Hal, my staff just went through applications of benefits from FEMA and the hurricane in Louisiana, and volunteered his staff to come here and help us work through the applications for aid of our people. I told you this privately before this airing, but I want to compliment this TV station for all of the commotion that's been going on. Hazard TV kept their senses, organized coverage, glued us all together. You're the only thing that glued the ends of this area with the middle. And I want to compliment you and your staff for doing one whale of a job.
We appreciate that. We know it's going to take a long time, long after the national media is gone, which they're already gone. But I think that's one thing that we need to try to get the word out. This is going to take months, if not years, to recover from.
But you've got the nation's attention. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was a national story, international, really.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of sympathy out there for us around the country, around Kentucky, and we need to take advantage of that as best we can in asking governmental assistance where it's appropriate, either state, federal, or local.
Yeah. I have to believe it's tough for you 40 years into your job.
42.
and having flood control a big part of your legacy.
Yeah.
To see something like this happen now.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind when you just think about just having this happen, now?
Well, it's depressing. And I've thought about that a lot. A lot of the work that we've done, cleaning up with the Pride program and trying to fight drugs with Unite, SKID and its efforts to bring jobs into the region and the like. To see a lot of that washed away, if you will, by this flood. But and I've thought about it a lot. We won't stop. Eastern Kentuckians don't stop. We do it because we have to. And we go through a lot of suffering and pain in doing so. But that's the way life is. And we take things as they are and try to improve them. So I'll be back in the business of trying to fight flooding.
Yeah. Do you fear it's going to set back other things like job creation and the drug issue is bad right now, the overdose problem? Yeah. Do you fear this is just going to set back other things as well?
Well, it's occupying our time and attention inordinately, and it's going to do that for years. We'll be a long time completely recovering from this disastrous flood, but I think we will, and we've got to understand it's going to take a while, and it's going to take a lot of effort for an extended period of time, with elevated interest and participation by our people. The SOAR organization that we put together, by the way, has been helpful in the flood relief, is an effort to lift our eyes to the horizon and see our future. And I think we've got a great future because we've got great people. The talents of these people are unsurpassed. And their interest is that way. And we'll suffer through setbacks like this flooding thing, but we'll get over that, and we'll march on to our future.
And speaking of SOAR, you're still having the summit, I believe, in October.
Yes.
And I'm sure this flood will be a topic of discussion, but I'm sure it'll also be a chance for you to look ahead to what's next.
That's right.
In the time we have left, I want to just touch on a couple other topics. Ukraine. You've heard, especially since this flood, well, why are we sending so much money to Ukraine? That money should be spent here at home, helping our local folks. The president just announced $3 billion in new military aid. Do you support that?
Yeah. We've got to understand that this is a proxy war by Russia. And our allies in Ukraine are really masterful at doing damage to the invader, the Russians. And they revealed to the world how weak, really, the Russian military is compared to what we were told earlier. But we don't have to choose between these two competing interests. Flooding here, help with our allies in Ukraine. We can do both and should do both. And I think we will.
You think Ukraine can win the war?
I think they possibly can, yeah. It's amazing the kind of fortitude that exists in that poor country that's been under the thumb of the Soviets for a long time until their independence on their anniversary, by the way, tomorrow, or today.
Yeah. Another money issue, the president just announced a big student loan forgiveness plan. It will provide $10,000 in student debt cancellation for millions of Americans. Do you support that?
It's going to cost us, if we do it, it'll cost us $300 billion, which is like pouring gasoline on a fire with inflation. That kind of expenditure will cause us to have more inflation, people having to pay more at the gas pump, the grocery store, baby food store, and the like. And it will also increase taxes. So this is a huge threat for inflationary increase, and I don't think it's a good idea.
Your colleague, Senator McConnell, in fact, just called it student loan socialism. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's big government, big, huge government, raising your taxes and raising the amount of money that you're pouring on the inflation fire.
But do you agree, though, that student loan debt is a huge problem in this country? I mean,
Sure.
I see it all the time with our people that we have hire straight out of college. It's definitely gotten a lot worse.
It needs to be addressed, and I think there's better ways to do it. But pouring money on an inflationary fire is not a good idea.
Of course, the Supreme Court recently overturned Roe v. Wade. A ban on abortion was recently left in place here in Kentucky by the Supreme Court. Do you think this issue, though, could end up coming back to hurt Republicans in the November election?
I don't think so. It's been a principle in our party's platforms for a long, long time, anti-abortion. Mm-hmm. And I think the public sentiment overall agrees with that.
The FBI raid of former President Trump's home has been, of course, in the news in the last few weeks. There's even been a lot of criticism of the FBI from people in your party. Do you agree with that criticism? And from what you've been told, was the raid warranted?
Well, I think we need to get to the bottom of the affidavit upon which the search warrant was issued. And Trump's idea, which he's now promoting, to have the court appoint a special agent, if you will, independent, to investigate what was seized and where it is now and where has it been. We need to know those things, and that can be done in a nonpartisan way.
It appears that the former president will probably run again in 2024. Would you support him if he's the nominee?
If he's the nominee, I'll be right there.
Would you rather it be somebody else?
Well, we'll see how the primary process goes. There's other people that's interested who I think would be qualified. But you got to bear in mind, Trump's policies when he was president were pretty doggone good. Tax cuts, strong military, strong economy, border closure on the southwest border, and so on. So whoever is our nominee will be adopting those issues, whether they like them or not. And if Trump is the nominee, I'm sure he will.
Do you think President Biden should run for re-election?
I'll let the Democrats decide that one.
Obviously, the November election coming up, do you think Republicans are going to be in control of Congress after the November election?
I think the House, certainly. The Senate, I don't know. No one knows what the Senate will do on any given day. But I think that's going to be close, but I believe we will seize control of the Senate as well.
Just a few seconds left, but, you know, our country still seems more divided than ever. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
I wish I could say yes. But the Congress reflects the country. The country's divided, much the same as the House of Representatives is. And yet we've got to rule and govern as divided as we are because the country needs us to succeed. So I think we will find a way to work together in the new administration, new congressional administration. I think we'll find a way to solve problems in an agreeable fashion.
All right. We're out of time. I didn't mention you're the Dean of the House now, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
All right. Congressman Rogers, appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
And we'll see you next time on Issues and Answers.